Welcome everyone to Politically High Tech with your host Elias. I am back for a new season. I know I've been recording for a while. I get it. I've been uploading shorts. I'm not sure that's proof that I've been alive. Just working behind the scenes. So being more in your face or more in your audio consciousness. If you want to be a little weird and technical about it. I got a returning guest here, and I'm happy that I am starting with, and I'm going to use this term on purpose, an established guest. Because I don't want to start with someone who doesn't understand at least some of my oddities and the way I flow. I do that once I feel safe enough. I gotta be a little more established vent, and then I could be open to be more alternative, even controversial to some of you. But I want Solis to start off just a little safe. We have a more of a safe start to the season because he's great. I don't think he needs much introduction. He's been here twice already. We got Michael Anderson here, okay? And he is not just a political buff, he's also a history buff. He merges the two together just to give a great and unique analysis of what's going on today and even recent history. Well, so that's the lead. That's the most I'm gonna give the introductions. I don't do the long introductions, but if you want to expand on that, Mike, go right ahead.
No, I'm good. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here for the third time.
Oh yeah, no, it is because you provide a very good analysis. And that's what I care about. I don't care you come from the left, the right, and the center. To me, that's not as important. But if you have a good head on your shoulders, you're not bringing political talking points, Kool Aid talking points. It's fine. And then even if you did, it'll be a one hit wonder at best. And at worst, it's well, I'm just gonna be to me, I'll just treat that like a lesson. But that's not him in the case. He provided great analysis on both sides of the aisle. Okay, and if you don't believe that, I'm gonna put the link of even previous episodes he has done as well, just to just give you some taste of it. All right,
Well,
but
let me
yeah, go ahead.
start with just explaining myself politically so people understand that, because it doesn't make sense for someone to watch our podcast and then trying to guess, well, is he a right or left or whatever. I'm an academic. I try to stay in the middle. Politically, I'm a moderate. So I have objections to what both sides are doing, particularly the establishment. Uh, you would probably call me more conservative on the economic side and more liberal on the cultural or social side. But my constituency is the American people. So I'm interested in seeing politicians take care of the American people rather than enriching themselves. So that's why I write. Let's start with my fifth book. I published a book last September 28th, was my fifth book, and it's called America's Counterfeit Democracy, Rule of the Power Elites. And it's basically a departure from for me because my first four books were technically a discussion of left right politics, why the left and right are different, the fact that they're genetically different, they don't think the same. One side's not going to turn into the other. So, in order to have effective government in our country, we have to have both sides working together in a consensus mode. So, anyway, but the fifth book is about how our political system is dominated by the billionaires. And the title, the words power elite or the term power elite comes from a book that was published in 1956 by a sociologist called C. Wright Mills, and it's just called the power elite. But he introduced the concept of the fact that um, there's an organization of the billionaires that work together to control our government. And so these are, if you look at the billionaires, there's one segment of them that don't care about politics. They just want to ride around their yachts and go on vacation and play golf. But there is a very serious group of wealthy people who want to influence the government. They have two objectives. One is to enrich themselves further than they're already enriched. And secondly, they would like to see the economic operation of the country be stable, because if it's stable, then that's the basis for them making more money. So, how do they influence politics? They influence basically in three major ways. Number one, they populate the executive branch typically. So, if you look at the Secretary of State or Secretary of the Treasury or Secretary of Commerce, and you look over the past years and you put all their resumes together and look at them, they all have the same profile. They all went to prep school. They all went to an Ivy League school. They have like a law degree or a business degree. They've worked in large corporations, or they've been consultants, or they've been elected officials, or they come from academia. So they're all alike. So they are dedicated to advancing the interests of the wealthy. And so you fill the executive branch with these people, and they act on behalf of the wealthy. The second way they influence us is through lobbyists, because the corporations fund the major lobbyists. And of course, corporations are owned by or controlled by the wealthy. So lobbyists can provide enough money to elected officials to influence their vote, and they do that. The third major way that the wealthy influence our political system is they're the ones that finance the candidates. So both at the level of the primaries and the general election. A scary statistic is if you, and I'm talking about Congress, primarily the House, but it applies to the Senate too. If you spend more money than your political opponent in an election, you got 90% chance of winning. So that means that nothing else matters except the number of times your face is seen by the public during the election campaign. Because most people are not politically aware in the sense that they analyze the issues and they arrive at their own opinion on which candidate represents their political philosophy. They vote because their tribe voted a certain way. What are their friends? Friends hate Trump, so I'm going to vote Democratic, whatever it might be. So, and the American people are partly to blame for this billionaire takeover because they have not exerted their control mechanism adequately. The control mechanism is who you elect. And we keep electing people who are part of the establishment instead of getting new people elected. So, and that's a huge issue. The establishment people are advocates for the wealthy, and that's why we have to get those people out and get new people in. There's always a hue and cry about term limits or age limits or whatever. You don't need either one of those things. All you have to do is vote the incumbents out and replace them with new people. And then you'll have a more responsive government, because the elected officials will now understand that unless they take care of the American people, namely the middle class, they're not going to get elected again. So, and let me talk a minute about the way this has to be done. There's a definite strategy. If the public could ever get organized on the same page, this would be very easy to execute. You have to use the primaries as a vehicle for replacement of the incumbent. So if there's two Democrats running for a House seat, one is the longtime establishment politician, the other person is a new person. You have to vote for the new person. Because if you wait to the general, then you are left with a Republican and a Democrat, and it's hard for Democrats to vote for a Republican in order to defeat their own candidate. So you have to defeat, and I'm talking about Republicans too, you have to replace your candidate during the primaries as a tool to change the Congress. So that is the basic picture. The wealthy are in partnership with the major corporations because of their influence over them, and together they influence the politics in the United States. Here's another statistic that's useful. Somebody did a study on the likelihood of a bill passing Congress based on specific circumstances. And so there are three data points I'm going to give you. If the wealthy favor a bill that's going through Congress, it has a 90% chance of winning. If the lobbyists, but not the wealthy, favor a bill, it has a 56% chance of passing. If the public supports a bill that it's in Congress, it has a 3% chance of passing. Now, of course, there's a lot of bills that the public and the wealthy support. So obviously it has a good chance of being passed because the wealthy are supporting it. But there are too many bills and too many laws that the public supports that the elected officials never pay attention to. There are so many things we could talk about. Like we could talk about homelessness. Los Angeles County has spent $10 billion in the last 10 years to cure homelessness, and it's much larger than it was then. They didn't do anything because the bureaucratic boondoggle that gets built when you try to create a homelessness solution like that means there are all these grifters along the way that take money out, and then there's no money left when it comes to housing the homeless people. So there's an enormous number of cases like that where they're just, the politicians and the power elite spend a lot of time propagandizing and telling us that everything is hunky-dory in the country. We're all doing great, economy's good, don't worry, whatever. That's propaganda. And they're trying to influence the minds of the public to forget about the things that are important to them and just pay attention to what the government's doing, which is wrong. So that's basically the power elite situation. The only way to defeat it is through the election process, because the public will never be organized enough to have enough power to go after the billionaires. And this is where Trump comes in and makes it very interesting. I personally don't like Trump's behavior. I have philosophical disagreement with him, how, he's in your face and rude and all those kind of things that are lacking decorum that befit the office of the presidency. But he's also probably the most important president elected in the past 50 years, and I'll explain it. You can draw your own conclusion when I'm done. The only way to go against the establishment is through populism. Trump is a populist. He calls himself a Republican. He's not really a Republican ideologically. He's a businessman. But because he's a businessman and there are very few businessmen in Congress, that's kind of good because he understands efficiency. I mean, if you can build high-rise buildings in Manhattan, I mean, I can't even imagine how hard that must be. The payoffs and the holdups and the crookedness and everything. So if you could build a business on that, I mean, you've got some capability. So, both parties, both establishment groups in each party, which are most of the elected officials, oppose Trump. He's hated equally by the Republicans as he is by the Democrats because he represents the people and doesn't represent them. So he's kind of like a analog for the case I'm describing, where if the people rose up and exerted their choice, I mean, they did in 2024 because they elected a person who they're convinced represents them better than somebody else. A populist has never been elected in our country before because the two parties are too powerful. So it took this tribal age of fossilizing of the Congress where nothing gets done because both parties just fight each other to a draw. The country doesn't move forward. There is no consensus. But by Trump's election, we've blown that whole thing up because, particularly through the executive orders, he can have a lot of impact on where the country's going. And there's so many oddities about this because the Trump derangement syndrome is so powerful that it puts Democrats that have the syndrome or in the that live in the echo chamber in a strange position. For example, we have to support a Venezuelan gang member who is a multiple felon, we don't want him sent out of the country. I mean, how many people really believe that that is right? First of all, he's here illegally. He's committed crimes when he was here, and 2 judges voted to deport him. So how can you defend that? And, potentially, I guess the left ideology is you got to defend everybody. Because if we're saying that it's bad to be against open borders, then we got to protect everybody that's here. So, and then there's the Doge stuff. I mean, there's so many things we could go into. How can anybody in Congress in either party oppose the government being more efficient? It's ridiculous. I mean, I don't look at Trump the person, I look at the things he's doing, and, nobody has ever done that before. Nobody has ever gone into the deep state and started firing people. Nobody's looked at like USAID and all the corrupt money that it's all grifting. It's all bribes going to other countries. How to introduce opera into Tibet or whatever. I mean, here's $100,000. It's incredible the amount of money that is funneled to corrupt purposes that should go to the American people. It's our money. We pay the taxes. The government should be servicing us. And so, I mean, it's another thing that's good about Trump is he's America first, and the past few presidents haven't been America first. Now include the Republicans in that group because, since probably Clinton, we've had a neoliberal operation in the executive branch, which is basically globalist capitalism first, which is against the nation state ideology, basically. And I'm extremely opposed to the whole globalist concept because that's how we get to 1984. Look what's happening in Europe. Free speech is suspended. They're telling the Dutch farmers how much they can plant or how many animals they can have because they're releasing methane in the air. I mean, so they, go out of business because of, the climate scare thing. Digital ID. I mean, if you go, the next step to digital ID is controlling. If you can get somebody's bank account, you can control how much they can take out of it. Or you can take their taxes out of it, or you can fine them and take the money out of their bank account if they don't behave. So, but the neoliberal philosophy is under attack all across the world, or the Western world, certainly, in most of the countries in Europe. And in here, we're much farther along in attacking neoliberalism than Europe because the EU controls Europe. And the EU is a neoliberal organization. So it's the nation state versus neoliberalism. It's populism representing the people against the establishment who is opposed to the people, the establishment on both sides. And that's where we're at.
Listeners, all viewers. I hope viewers pay attention to that. That was a lot of value what he is saying, and I'm sure you can disagree with some. That's okay. It's okay if you disagree with some, but some are just some are just objectively true. Okay, I mean, you, you could debate on some parts. I don't know about this whole El Salvador man. Some people defend him, like especially the left, and especially who's the senator that went there? I think Chris Van Hollen, who did a little tour visiting him. I find that a little strange to me. I was like, oh, they really try to make this a big political issue. And it didn't land that well. The censors was like, why would you visit someone who's over there? And I don't know. The only question I have is why would the Supreme Court instruct Trump to retrieve him, or is this something that I misheard? Because
Oh
that's
no,
one of
right. They voted against Trump. They said that he should be brought back because he wasn't taken through the final stage of due process. Because there was a hearing scheduled that somebody lost track of, and that hearing was never conducted before he was deported. So technically, the Supreme Court is correct. But the issue that I don't think people understand, and I watched did this video. Somebody did a video on, it was um, Alan Dershowitz, the lawyer. He did a whole video on immigrant law, and immigrant law is very vague. There's never, I mean, no one has defined due process for an immigrant in the way it's been defined for American citizens. It's very well defined. Miranda rights, all this stuff, court hearings, everything, it's set in concrete. If you're an immigrant, it's not. And technically, the president has the power to deport anyone who's here illegally. So it's a question of refining all these conflicting precedents, because they're not really laws, into something that is concrete.
I say the immigration system does need fixing. That's for sure. Lots of it. I think it's been long overdue. I think last time we did something comprehensive was like what, over 40 some years ago? Yeah, I think
Well,
that was like
Reagan did something.
Reagan. Yeah,
Reagan,
Reagan
yeah,
was like the last,
in the
the
80s. So
last.
that's 40 years ago.
Yeah,
Last big thing.
yeah. No, yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was during the Reagan time. I remember clearly if something was done for immigration, but it needs a lot of work. Let's be clear. I don't care you're left, right, center. It needs a lot of work. And
Yeah.
you say it's vague, which is very problematic. So it's open to all this weird conflicts that we are having now. And this is, America's a pretty reactive country when it comes to a lot of things. There's just many examples of it. Look, I just think immigration needs to be fixed. Me personally, I just think I want a system that is strict but fair and protective. And I don't want it to be to the point that we don't have nobody coming in, but we also want to help those who has gone through very chaotic situations
Well,
abroad.
the way it should really start, if you're trying to do this correctly, is to take care of the illegal immigrants that are here. Give them a path to citizenship. Clean up what's here before you deal with those come on the outside that are coming here.
I agree. I think who was the Republican that said that before? I think Charles Krafthammer said something similar to that. So we got to clean up what's already in here,
Yeah.
give them path. He said something similar along those lines. I watch enough PragerU videos, so I know who's who there. He says
Right.
he proposed something similar. I said, you know what? That makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
So in the center, that makes a lot of sense. They ready here. I think the ones that should be penalized, like that, I call the Republican wrath, like the violent, filthy criminals that done chaos and all that. Oh yeah, do whatever. Even if you have to take them down with a gun because they be violent, go right ahead. As far as I'm concerned, but they got to be a proven. They got to be a criminal, as far as I'm concerned. I don't want that. I don't want it to be. I'm sure you're not proposing that, but I'm sure. And what is it? Nativist, ultra far right, the fringe groups would probably want to do something like that, but that's not the majority of even Republicans. Let me just be clear about that. I don't want it to lead in that direction as well. The reason why I say that, because sometimes I get too concerned. I might could go deep into the future. I hope it's just paranoia. I don't want it to become reality, but some things that become reality is getting a little scary. But let me just get back to the thing at hand. I got a lot of things to say here. I but yeah, but thank you for that clarification. I think people need that clarification about how the American law is so well defined and clear that you can't that being open to misinterpretation, misunderstanding is a lot less excusable as opposed to the immigrant law, which is vague and open to kinds of mess because it hasn't been well defined. I think people need to be very understanding of that. I'm not a lawyer expert, but it's good to have clarity on that because I think a lot of people don't have clarity on that on both sides, on both camps. Definitely the left doesn't, and I would say some on the right too as well. That's refreshing. See, this is why I like to talk to people with good head on their shoulders because people look. I don't care. It's Trump derangement syndrome or you hate Biden that much. Y'all go crazy. Y'all want to reject reality. Y'all, you just want to support the guy no matter how vicious they are. And I'm going to stick to my own opinion here. Biden and Trump are just, to me, they're two old white fools with different ideologies and different approaches to government. And regardless of my criticism, I do hope they succeed. Regardless of my criticism, I know for especially the Trump lovers, you think I'm a Trump hater. No, I support when he's done right. And to be honest, I eventually, personally, I could say I have supported Doge. Not in the beginning, I was very skeptical about it, especially Elon Musk being in charge. I was like, whoa, what the hell is this? but they are uncovering a lot of waste. Even though it's ugly, but they're uncovering a lot of waste. Spending on woke globalist stuff, I'm against that entirely.
Yeah, I mean, the point is that any program that the federal government institutes for foreign policy purposes should be ideologically neutral. We don't. I don't want when a Republican is if the Congress is Republican, I don't want them passing laws to do Republican ideology in Romania either. It should because the country has two sides. It has a conservative and liberal side, and it should operate as a consensus. And the government should be ideologically neutral. To be
I
fair,
agree.
otherwise you're leaving. If you're pushing a progressive narrative in the Far East, then you're leaving out the opinions of half Americans. It's wrong.
I agree. Yeah, I definitely don't want a pro Republican. I don't know programs, and I don't know. Let's throw in African nation, probably like Uganda, for example. I want that either. I believe in self determination I would say to like 80% of it. Let them be their own nations. We got our ways, they got their ways. Shoving our agenda rather is super patriotic or woke. I agree, it's actually wrong. I should be clear on that, by the way. See, this is why I like talk to good people. See, that's a blind spot I don't normally address a lot. So like, look, let only America could do pro America and even the woke crap. I don't like the woke crap personally, but I think they have more legitimacy doing that in America. And if the foreigner is interested in it, let it just be for target audience. That's the most compromise I can say. But if it goes beyond that, we got a problem. We're just shoving it down people's throats. That's why the African nations have been throwing U.S. people out and the agenda. And then some even said, we don't care about your woke dollars or even your gay dollars. They said it just like that. All right. I've been trying to pay attention globally. This is why we are not liked. And I can understand if I was another country, they're shoving things down our throat. I said, but we're not America. No.
You're talking about the conflict again between neoliberalism and conservative government in the sense that Republicans. I I mean, if they try to influence our allies, it's influence them economically. The Republicans don't really have an ideology. The conservative ideology is status quo and protect traditions. It's not like trans issues or anything like that. So we shouldn't be trying to change the culture of other countries. That's kind of like a missionary does. You represent the Catholic Church or something, and you go to Ecuador and you try and make everybody Catholic. I mean, I can understand the motivation behind it, but there's also the culture. To me, the culture shouldn't be disturbed because of course, that's the nation state concept. That's the unique language of that culture. That's the history of that culture, economics of that culture, and it's theirs. But to the neoliberals, there's one world, and it should be controlled by NGOs.
Yeah, Mom. That one, I'm not a liberal on that one. I'm actually a proud conservative on that issue. I'm more self determination. Yeah, I'm proud on that one. I'm not gonna pretend to be a neutral on that one. One world, no, 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 no. That's someone that has a super ego trip. No, no. Just people got their own cultures. Just respect it, and then we attack the YouTubers who have violated that. You're the reason why they hate America too, because your controversial takes, your over the top nonsense, that total disregard of other cultures. And I'm gonna bring back this classic example. This is more for the Gen Zers here. Logan Paul, where he did the Suicide Forest, disrespect that was filmed in dead bodies. This is a forest where they go kill themselves. And he had total disregard. He was doing it for fame and what the cool kids call clout. So, and that to me, I'm against that too. That's why I praise, I think one YouTuber who's doing well in that is I Show Speed. He's bridging between China and America. That's more of a positive example. But there's a lot more bad examples of YouTubers having total disregard for other cultures once they go over there and film their content for
Yeah, you're
their.
you're describing the worst problem with social media.
Yeah.
which is the truth dies to get clicks. So, you can't trust. It's very hard. I mean, people ask me all the time, how do I know what the truth is? And my best answer is pick a source that you trust at both sides, read it, and divide it in the middle.
Ground News, plug in Ground News. It's a very good source. Ground News, there you go. Or even 1440. I could throw sources out there. I will link them too. They will give you the left wing, right wing, and centrist flavor, I'm going to call them, or perspectives of the news. And I think those are very good sources. And they'll even let you know that the left doesn't really cover this particular issue, the right doesn't cover this particular issue. They say blind spot the left, blind spot the right. And
there's another tool I recommend. There's something called allsides.com, all
yes,
sides, and they publish a graph, and it's updated, I think, monthly, that shows all the news media outlets and where they fall in the political spectrum. So you could see like MSNBC's way on the left, Fox News is way on the right, for example. But the ratings of each news outlet are based on consumer input. So they'll 5 or 6 or 7,000 people for their opinions on is this left, is it right? And they take a consensus, and that's how they build their chart. So it's a very quick and useful way to find opposing views to whatever you're reading typically and get the other side.
all sides. That's another one. Yeah, but that's the one that, even though I had my source, but I follow them too, I'll say pretty religiously now. Because I just believe metadata. I think they try to form here of what the bias of these mainstream medias are at. I still say I think ABC is sort of center left. The last time I checked, compared to all the other ones, but I could be wrong. I haven't been checking that particular piece, but we know Fox is right. But Newsmax and OAN are further right than Fox. Let's be
Yeah.
clear. And
But
I think Fox is right. Yeah.
there's way more on the left than the right. You know that because of the traditional media is left leaning.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like MSNBC to CNN, CBS.
Right, right,
Easy,
right.
easy to list those. New York Times, throw that one in there, even as a paper. They lean left. Even though some of their reporting is good, especially their cultural art reporting.
Well, I'm a subscriber to the New York Times. I know it's left, but I don't discount that because first of all, I want to read stuff on the left that's well done, and not all the stuff that they publish is left stuff. So I'm a big Trump opponent, but still, there's a lot of good content in that newspaper. So I also subscribe to a socialist magazine, Jacobin. So, I mean, I got to read it and I got to understand those people's points of view to be objective. I live in an echo chamber all the time. If you live in an echo chamber, you can't have an objective opinion about the other side.
Oh yeah, the Jacobin. Oh yeah, yeah, socialist. That's really
Yeah. So
left.
pure
Yeah.
socialism. Yep.
I've read a few of Jacobin. Yeah, I was like, I'm not sure I was comfortable reading all that. I was like, oh yeah, they like socialists, overthrow the government, change America from inside and out. I'm not sure I support that too, and I don't support the far right thing too. That they want to go back to like freaking 2 centuries ago. I don't support that either.
Right.
Look, you got to deal with the situation now and just make the best out of it. Make America irrelevant. I don't know how long we're going to stay as a superpower. There's been the empirical decline America's been facing, especially economically, where we no longer the super petrol or world global dollar petrodollar. Especially with BRICS. BRICS has been a big challenge to that, but that's going. I'm going too much into economic stuff. I don't want to get too deep into that,
Right.
but
The
that's
bottom
that's
line of
one big example of the empirical decline. Yeah, go ahead.
the bottom line of what you're saying to me is you have radical left and a radical right that to the average citizen should be discounted and ignored. So you look for things that are closer to the center. I mean, if like MSNBC or Fox, I mean, you're in an echo chamber if that's all you watch, one or the other. So don't get yourself other sources of information that are more objective. instead of relying on the extremes, because the extremes influence, we're tribal because of the extremes, because both the conservative left and the conservative right have co-opted it to the radicals. And of course, to the media, the radicals they get more clicks because their ideas are more radical. I mean, it's just this horrible, circular firing squad, basically.
Yep, attention is the most valuable currency. Oh, sorry, I cut you off. What were you going to
No,
say?
I was just going to say, American people you have to think for yourself now. In 1880, you could listen to Walter Cronkite on CBS and say, well, I really trust that guy. And of course, CBS then was more objective than it is now. You could just go, well, I heard this on Walter Cronkite said it, so it's right. Now you can't say that. You have to figure out your own ideology in relation to what's happening.
Yep, you summarized me perfectly. Yep, disregard the fringe radicals. Pay attention even to center right, center left, or pure center, if that even exists. Because even the center's a little skewed, a little to the slight left, slight right, whatever. Nothing's perfectly in the middle, which is fine by me. But just just have something that's more objective. Don't go to your, I don't know, if you're left, watching a view alone will be a disservice. You need to watch. Even I know this is going to piss some of you off, but I'm fine with it. I don't know, a Greg Gutfeld. That's your counter to the view. That's more on Fox, and vice versa. For those on the right, you can't just pay attention to the Greg Gutfeld show either. Watch the view to see what's going on.
The
So
other thing we haven't even addressed is
right,
critically important is the new media, which is basically Substack and podcasting, because that's where people are going to get their information, because they could pick out, you have on Substack, I write on Substack, but you could pick out a variety of views, and there's a lot of people that are near the middle, and find, like I subscribe to 5 or 6 different Substack sites that I'm interested in. And so anybody can do the same thing. Same with
and I'll
listen
guess
to
you got a
podcasts.
Substack as well. Go check that out. Shameless plug-in. I'm doing it for you. Look, listen, look, he got a Substack as well, so go check him out, and I'll put that link as well. So just link that Substack, and you find it in the description of the episode. So
Yeah,
you'll check out his work. It's unique. It's definitely refreshing. It's the cool kids will call it base because they don't care about the powers that be. It's truthful opinion without giving a rat's behind about the establishment approval, and that's what anyone with a good Substack account would have. Opinion that is needs to be heard. That is definitely anti establishment.
Yeah, let me give you the URL. It's Mike 0.
So that's gonna be in the
And I
description.
publish an article weekly there. So it's sort of a quicker way to get information out to people than writing a book.
Yep. So there you go. Another shameless plug-in. Here I got the new book. I Counterfeit Democracy, such a great title because it is such an illusion. The rich controls a heck of a lot. That's the main point. If they like something, that's 90% chance pass through. If only the commoners like something's only 3%. Oof. Very, very depressing odds. And then if both like it, it's 56, which that's interesting. I would thought that would have been
No, no,
95%, but
no, that's not both like. That's if lobbyists like it.
oh,
If
that's
lobby,
okay.
yeah,
Okay, thank you for that correction. Only if lobbyists like it's 56%. Even the lobbies are not the most powerful.
right, right.
They're like second class when it comes to the power of money based on those numbers. Okay, that makes more sense. I was wondering. I was
Yeah,
wondering if I was.
where I brought together the 3% and the 96% is because there are bills that the public supports that the elite supports too. So the public gets the benefit if that bill passes because they have an interest in it. Problem is, there are many, many issues that the public is interested in that the government ignores.
Yep. So again, let me just say it now correctly. If it's the rich only, they have a over 90% chance of having it pass. If it's a lobbyist only, it's 56. If it's only public without the other two higher classes, okay? Yeah, lobbyists is kind of the middle class when it comes to this power structure. 3%. All right. So let me just re-summarize that so I can get it right this time because I just care. I care about getting it right, not my own ego. If it was my own ego, I would have been yelling at the guest right. I don't dare correct me in front of my people. No, I don't care about that. That to me, the ego is not that important. I care about getting it right. If that's me being corrected during the recording, so be it. Because I don't want misinformation being spread, and that means even challenging my own ego, which some people don't do, by the way. But I care about that more than anything. My ego's not that important. My ego's been crushed and destroyed many times. I will live. I'll be okay. You people don't think if your ego dies, you'll live. Okay, that's the main point. It's gonna feel just emotionally painful, but I think that's something that a lot of
Everybody
Americans got
makes
to get over.
mistakes and
Yeah,
everybody uses
exactly.
incorrect information when they don't know any better.
All right.
I mean, I always say that I mean, I have to have whatever I believe tested by other people. Because if I'm sitting in my office and I'm just thinking about my ideology or something, that it's not criticized. I'd rather talk to a Democrat than a Republican, basically, because I want to hear the basis for their belief. Because probably they just have a different point of view than I do. Like I talked about liberal and conservative. So it's understanding. I mean, again, the key thing to understand about the two groups is that they're not going to turn into each other. So you have to work together. So the tribal thing is bad because it keeps people from talking and keeps consensus from forming. So we tread water instead of moving forward.
Yeah, no, we need to restore that level of consensus. And I also want to point back what you said about the EU, which is very interesting. And I perfectly agree with this. I don't want us following the same path as the EU. That part, I'm very clear about that because you already mentioned all the specific examples. Digital ID, oh, freedom of speech, forget that. Hate speech laws is a real thing in the EU. You say something wrongful, you will be arrested and you will be locked up. Here is just you lose your job, your social media access. But if we don't do anything about it, we will be heading that same direction as the EU, maybe even worse.
Yeah, it's really. I don't know if you've read what's going on in the UK, but the free speech laws there. I mean, people are getting arrested because they posted something on Facebook that
Yeah,
offended somebody else, and the three cops come to their house and arrest them. I mean, no American can conceive of that happening. You know, where is a probable cause? Where I mean, it, it's absurd. It's scary.
I, oh, it is scary. No, I read about that. I said, wow. I said this is becoming more authoritarian.
Yeah,
So you got to have the right opinion. You got to have the right speech. You cannot. Oh, God forbid you're offended. So the offended has more power than you.
yeah, exactly.
So, for example, I know he will never do this. And Michael Hansen posts something that seems like it's criticizing immigrants. I'm gonna say he's racist. If we live in Great Britain, he will be arrested. I said, ban that account. He's a racist, bad white man. Some of you Americans are familiar with that. The most consequence happen in America is sadly they get swatted by police. That's the worst happens, which is still tragic. But you don't got your rights being lost, maybe except for lost access to a social media account and the loss of employment. That's the worst it gets in
And
America.
the COVID thing, I mean, their COVID policy basically is if there's another pandemic and you don't get the shot, you go to jail because you're risking the lives of other people by not getting your shot, even though it's been shown that the shot doesn't because you have the shot doesn't mean you're not going to get it again. It also doesn't mean that you're going not going to transmit it. So the whole thing is built based on a lie. I know people. I had four shots. I had the first two and then two boosters, but I stopped then. I know people have had all the shots and they've had COVID three or four times. So it was built. There were so many lies during that rollout that it's going to be important to uncover what Fauci was really doing.
Yeah, me personally, all I got was one shot, and I didn't bother the boosters. So like, I started catching on to, whoa, I'm not the most right leaning person. You know, some things I sounds like I'm a right wing. You talk to me about woke issues, you think I'm a very right wing because I'm very critical of the woke language.
Yeah.
and policies in their belief. I'm very critical of things. I lean definitely more liberal. So look, I'm for multiculturalism. I'm for a lot of these things. The LGBTQ got their rights, fine. But if you show me woke agenda down people's throats, that's what you think I'm a right wing. I'm very critical of those issues. So even though I think culture, I still lean to the culturally and and societally when it comes to those culture issues, I think I lean to that. But fiscally, I definitely lean to the right. I think the right just makes a lot more sense. Policing, I think I agree a little more with the right, generally speaking, because to me, it just makes more sense. The left, I say, yeah, culturally, I definitely agree with the left. Culture policies, I definitely favor the left. And maybe healthcare. Oh, healthcare, definitely lean to left. These major changes on that one. Yeah, healthcare definitely. I'm almost like progressive left on that issue. As a yeah, I don't like the current system, so I'm like, to hell with it. So that's just my thinking. Can it change until I see a better idea? Of course it can. That's the only alternative I see for now. Only in terms of healthcare. I don't want everything else being socialized either. I think it should be only for like the poor people and all that. That part I agree with the left. And then that's and in corporate taxing the corporations, I definitely side with the left on that one. They could pay more taxes. They can. They make record profits. It's been shown over again. Yeah, can afford more taxes and they can help the country. I don't know corporations not gonna love me for that one. Oh well. I'm not liked by many people anyway, so I'll be okay. I'll live. But so that's my take on some of these things. That's where I lean politically. I'm politically hybrid. If you come to think about it, that's why I don't fit with Dems or the Republicans. I think they both are pretty obsolete. But like you said, they got too much power. That's why they're still here.
Well, there's more people like you than a radical. I mean, I already talked about that. I mean, the average uh, traditional Democrat believes that we need to stop tribalism and work together with the right. It's only the radical left that doesn't believe that. They believe
Right.
they're the only ones who are right, and anybody who doesn't have their opinion is wrong.
Not just wrong. You're a racist. You're
Right.
this. All the name calling. I mean, even the far right got their own name calling.
Yep.
It's all they both are saying. I don't want to just bash one side of the aisle, but I'm overall a centrist. If you want to give me if you want a simple description of me, I'm more independent centrist at the end of the day because I don't believe in fitting to the box. I don't care about the political parties. I care about America,
Right.
not the
Yep.
political parties. To hell with the political parties. As far as I'm concerned, if they both die out, I think it'll be a good thing. Personally, even though that's a radical take. But if they die off, or maybe even change for something more relevant, I'm even open to that as well. But
It'd
that's
be
not going to
nice.
happen anytime soon.
Be nice if there were a third party possibility here, but the system's rigged to prevent third parties from operating.
Yep.
So unless they change the laws about that, there'll never be a third party, which means we're stuck with these two parties that are establishment driven by billionaires.
And let me do my own shameless plug in for two organizations. One of them you introduced me to, I officially joined them, the Braver Angels. Join that organization. I will put the link on how to join them. I enjoy my time there, even though I think the national side of it is a bit better than the local side, if I'm going to be honest. And I'm in the New York City, of course, Alliance. I so far I think I buy more with the national team because I think they just have more stuff going on with the debates and workshops and anything like that to try to bridge the gap. And sometimes they got intra workshops because sometimes the blue tent don't get along with each other. You already said the traditional Democrats, progressives, and the progressives they fight among each other very aggressively, I might say. And the neocon and the conservatives can't stand each other either within the red tent. Intra conflict. They even got workshops for that as well. I didn't even know that. That's all. This is fascinating because it's true. They're both big tents and they both fight among each other.
Yeah.
When it comes to some issues.
I
I
went
mean,
to the
what's the most famous example I could get for the Democrats? It's Israel and Hamas conflict. Very good example. And then when it comes to Republicans, it was the Ukraine conflict that split that party. So just because you're in the same party doesn't mean you're always going to agree. Sometimes certain times the intra conflict is stronger than the external conflict. Certain times. So that's all I'm going to say about that. So check them out. I think they're a good organization, and you can donate. You don't have to donate a lot.
$10 a month.
Yeah, it's a monthly donation. I personally donate 10. I'm thinking about donating a little more. I just want to give them a shot just to get a feel how they are.
I went
And
to
then
the
there's a second alliance I've joined as well, but this one's more. This is only if you live in New York. Unite NY. The reason why I'm mentioning them is because they're trying to change, the term limits, open primaries in New York State. This is more of a state thing. I put a link for that as well. So if you live in New York, that's something. While Braver Angels is more national, they even got their local charters. Unite NY is pretty straightforward. It's only for New Yorkers. You could be in Buffalo, Schenectady, Niagara Falls, New York City, Long Island, Westchester County. So it's within the New York State. I think you should join that because we're trying to change election process with that. And you kind of disagree with term limits and age limits. That's one of the things that's being pushed, by the way. Term
I
limits.
like the idea. It's just how you're ever going to get that.
No,
I mean,
but I understand where you're coming
I,
from. You're going for the
yeah,
perspective of practicality. If
yeah,
we get our act together,
yeah.
we won't really need that. So I get it. I get it. It's that's one of the things. Oh, and well, ranked choice voting. I say the Democrats love that one. Like I like it too. But the one that I liked it was an open primary because as an independent, it's such a pain in the neck. I gotta wait till the general election. It's because it's a closed primary. This, New York Democrats, if you care about accessibility and democracy, fix your crap. Fix your, get your house in order first before you criticize the outside. You haven't got this one right. You haven't got to call out the Democrats because you're the power. You're the powerful party of New York. You're the dominant party of New York. So I got to call you out more than Republicans. Republicans are almost non-existent. They like dying dodo birds. Okay, in New York City. So that's all I'm gonna say. All right, enough of my rambling and self plugins for those who want to make change. Is there anything else you want to add before I wrap this up?
Do not. I think we covered a lot.
But yeah, we definitely cover a lot, and I'm sure there's going to be more to cover. Based on this Trump speed, I can't keep up with it. Most people can't keep up with it. Maybe, I don't know, unless you're super close to him. Those are the ones that can keep up with it. But none of us are there, and I don't think we're ever going to be there unless, I don't know, miracle luck comes, and that could happen probably once in a lifetime. I don't know. I'm not gonna hold my breath. I'm a realist. The odds look pretty bad for both of us to beat Trump. So I'm sure we're gonna have a lot more to talk about regarding Trump, midterms, all that. I'll talk about that later episodes about what I think could win either chamber. I'm just gonna say right now, very briefly, I think the Republicans, excuse me, I think the Republicans could maintain the Senate. The House of Representative, however, is a lost cause.
Probably. Probably is.
I think they might get net gain one seat because Democrats have a very narrow chance of taking the Senate. Out of the 23 seats that are up, I think only 3 seats are vulnerable. And even when they lose 3 seats, they still maintain that 50-50. JD Vance, vice president's job is to be the tiebreaker in the Senate. So that's technically still under Republican control, even if they lose 3 seats. A net loss 3. I think they might get a net gain 1. But I could be wrong. These are just predictions I like to do for fun. You could bash me, criticize me later, say I'm a crazy person. But whatever. I'm willing to take that chance. It's just for fun for me. I don't care about my ego. So go ahead and destroy it. It's been killed many times already. So, with that, enough with these future teasers. So if you enjoyed this episode, give a like, subscribe, give a review on Apple Podcasts. Check out the Buzzsprout link as well to the website of my podcast. And so for whenever you're listening to this podcast, you have a blessed day, afternoon, or night.